Hello everybody, my name is Richard Murray, and as Laura introduced me, I'm the Chief Executive and co-founder of ORCA Computing. I've got the unenviable task of being 15 minutes before lunch with the job of explaining and describing the journey of commercialising quantum computing to an audience of the UK's sort of leading IT and technology experts, so no pressure. My aim is to be honest, try and demystify what quantum's about. In fact, the last panel was great. Some of what I'll do is sort of embellish on some of the points that were made with a few nice pictures. But my aim is to sort of try and enlighten you as to what quantum is, maybe in the reality of it. So there were several interesting questions asked about the timing of quantum computing, what should we do to prepare. So I'll try and address some of those really taxing questions. I mean, let's not pretend like this. I mean, quantum is the Wild West at the moment. There's so much happening. It's moving forward so quickly. I'll try my best to try and describe what's going on with a view to try and help you prepare. But the presentation I'll actually give, it was actually already given to the Gartner Research Board for IT and Technology, so sort of board of very leading IT experts. And to that audience and to you, I will say I'll do two things. I will not do two things today. I firstly won't try and sell you quantum computing. I think that's important. I think you're intelligent enough to be able to see through that. And the second thing I won't do is I will not pretend like quantum computing is for everyone right now. So with those two caveats aside, I can sort of press on to sort of describe what things are about. So this is me. Nice to start with a huge picture of my face. So to just describe where I'm coming from, I've had quite a varied career spanning academia. So I did quantum physics for my PhD. I was a consultant for a little bit for TTP. I actually worked within government for Innovate UK and what was BEIS at the time, setting out the initial quantum strategy in the UK in 2013. Back then, I think I was probably the world's first sort of quantum business development person. I don't think that job title existed back then in 2013. I had a brief spell at Teledyne, or what was E2V, before in 2019 starting my own company, ORCA Computing, as a University of Oxford spin-out. And actually very recently have been involving myself in an organisation called UK Quantum, which is sort of a trade association for quantum, working with techUK. So hopefully you can see from that career, I've sort of done lots of different things. And one of the things I think I like to try and do is to present a highly commercial perspective on what is, or what was very recently, a very academic pursuit. And hopefully you'll find that useful. But you know, I will start by saying what ORCA does. So I think Richard in the last talk introduced ORCA as a company selling quantum computers. So we do. This is a picture of our quantum computer. It's a photonic device. You might sort of recognise it as looking nothing like what you expect a quantum computer to look like. It's based on photonics, so it doesn't involve any cryogenic cooling or anything else like that. So first takeaway point, quantum computing is so diverse that even your perception of what one looks like is probably can be different. But what a lot of people know ORCA for is being the company that sold the first quantum computer to the UK Ministry of Defence. So as something of a piece of entertainment, I like to flash up. You know, when I woke up, when the day the news broke, ORCA was actually the #1 most read news article on BBC. So UK government acquires first quantum computer, in and amongst loads of what looks like pretty terrible news stories. So ORCA's sort of, you know, and I think it is exciting in the UK, leading the sort of tech agenda. Let's be honest, in and amongst horrendous stories about fly tipping and everything else. Who are ORCA? This is sort of a by the by, but you know, we are a University of Oxford spin-out. We're based on very prolific research carried out by Professor Ian Walmsley. But since we formed as this highly commercially focused organisation, we've attracted some of the leading names in high-performance computing. So we now think of us as this hybrid, highly academic sort of quantum team, sort of forced up against a highly commercial, mostly high-performance computing related team, and that seems to work for us quite well. So this is where I start to embellish or go over some of the points that were mentioned in the last presentation, just to describe what quantum is in my own view. And as the last panel discussed, quantum is actually, it's a wealth of different technologies. It's not a single technology. In fact, I like to think of quantum as a new origin of what we think of as data. So, of course, we're talking about new ways to generate data, quantum sensors. We're talking about new ways to communicate data, quantum communications, and new ways to process data, quantum computing. But think of it as no less as a new way to think about data. And we can get into why it's different, entanglement and all the rest of it. But it is as profound as reinventing how we look at data and how we look at processing data, which hopefully explains some of the excitement behind the field. So, as was mentioned in the last panel, it is a wealth of different application areas. What you're seeing here is the evolution of several underpinning component technologies, which have been in academia for decades now, but really are only now mature enough that they can be embedded within products. And as the last panel described, there's a wealth of different things. We all talk about computing, but there's also communications, sensing, and timing and navigation. That can all seem a little bit dry. So what I like to do is to really illustrate some cool things, not computing related, we'll get onto that. So Richard sort of talked about this cool brain scanning thing. I'm sure anyone who follows Elon Musk knows about Neuralink or new ways to interrogate the brain. There are ways to use quantum sensors to do that without having horrendous implants, which, by the way, stop working after a few months. So using some of the quantum mechanics that are being commercialized, you can have these head-mounted devices that help you to do things like diagnose schizophrenia. There's some really cool research looking at neural pathways and changes to those neural pathways that can literally, non-invasively, determine and diagnose schizophrenia, as well as some more exotic things like tell you what you're looking at without actually asking you, by interrogating your brain signals. There are also other really, in my opinion, very exciting developments on the sensing front. This is a picture of the Earth's gravity field. So there's very accurate ways that you can measure gravity. If you're a non-physicist, you might ask why anyone would care about that. Well, if you can measure gravity very accurately, you can look at things like holes in the ground, caves, subterranean infrastructure. And it's sort of remarkable to think to yourself that until now there is no way to tell what's beneath the surface other than to dig. So if you can use a quantum sensor to do that, any sort of large building construction project that has a problem starting out because they can't tell what's beneath the ground can all of a sudden have a de-risking element or a head start. So another sort of profound use of quantum mechanics on the sensing side. This is a picture of a quantum clock. Some of you might be familiar with quantum timing and quantum navigation. I think what Ukraine is telling us is how sensitive data is in just defence environments. Actually, what's been surprising is the amount of use of electronic warfare to prevent access to GPS. So, you might worry about times when you can't get access to GPS, but let me tell you, there are many, many people who really worry about when they can't get access to GPS. And quantum can provide the answer to that, helping you navigate without relying on something overhead, which is prone to be intercepted. So now to the sort of main thrust of my talk. Why quantum? Why should you be interested? Why now? And I think the timing of things is the critical question. So I really would say that the pace is accelerating. So watching, as I have over the last 10 years, the development of quantum, the interest and the private investment going into quantum computing at every level, it's truly remarkable. Never before have we seen such a significant amount of investment gone into quantum computing, and the pace at which things are developing is rapid. So every year passes that we see new things happening, new applications emerging, new developments on the hardware side. So if you're worried about being caught out, then you've got to make sure you're in front of that curve of progress. I think sort of subtly in amongst those points, I also have the point about the sort of human capital increasing. So, what is investment in technology unless you have the people to drive the technology forward? And specifically, I'm talking about people who spent their career working in academia, suddenly being given jobs in very well-funded startups. To be honest, there's some momentum behind that. It takes a while before someone who is used to being not given any money is suddenly given a lot of money and told, hey, reinvent semiconductors to make a quantum computer work. That human capital is now at the point where people really are driving the industrial agenda forward towards commercializing quantum computing and quantum in general. So things are moving forward really quickly, and the key point here is as I think was mentioned in the last panel, if you don't want to be left behind, if your business is at the forefront of compute, and to be honest, if there's a competitive advantage in you making sure you harness cutting-edge compute capabilities, I don't believe you can afford to be left behind when this emerges into the landscape. So that's quite a clear point for me. It's not for everyone. It's about working out whether it's got this ability to provide a competitive edge to your business. But as I said, I'm also a big believer in why not quantum. I will be clear that it is a wild west. Some of the key elements of the evolution of quantum computing are not clear. So the questions aren't even clear, let alone the answers to the questions. So there is a lot of uncertainty around the timing, the applications, the use, the value proposition related to quantum computing. And so if this whole thing isn't tainted with this desire that you have to be competitive and the potential competitive advantage you can win, there is a very strong argument that you should just sort of sit and wait. And I think that's important to recognise. That there are applications that I hear of using quantum computers for many low tech, where clearly companies are still going through their digital transformation, and you do end up thinking, okay, why is this company looking at quantum computing? Because it's clear that the company is not sort of at the forefront of compute already, so maybe the answer is to sit and wait. So yeah, I think sometimes if your business can afford to be 3 to 5 years behind the lead, then maybe the answer is wait and follow. But here's the clincher. Here's my attempts at trying to clarify, as I think Kate at IBM did just in the previous talk, what the evolution looks like in my view. So we are looking at the bringing to market of a completely new technology. Kate mentioned this sort of early stage era. It's called the NISQ era if you're highly physics and technically related. Really, we're looking at 1 to 1,000 qubits. That's not the only metric to look at, but it's the most easy to find. And really, we're looking at hybrid compute. So we're looking at quantum working side by side with classical computing to try and do something better, try and accelerate workloads. I think we're looking at an era of expansion of availability. It is not hard to be able to access a quantum computer or get started with proof of concepts. And so what companies are doing is expanding their awareness and profile in this area. Pretty quickly following that, and you can see here we're working to a sort of 10-year timeline, we've got sort of the very first error correction machines. So moving from what might be classed as very specialist machines to more general purpose machines. So we're sort of in the era of 1,000 to 1,000,000 qubits. And in my view, the first applications really are about optimization and simulation. So sort of problems where they naturally look quantum in their structure. And then the holy grail that we are all working towards, the thing that looks like a complete reinvention of how we look at computing, is the dawn of large-scale error-corrected systems. So look at the numbers here. We've gone from where we are today, sort of less than 1,000 qubits, to sort of 1 to 10 million qubits plus. That's the era where you do have these standalone systems that people will start to access. And in my view, that's where things really start getting interesting. You start reinventing chemistry, security, fluid dynamics, and such like. So maybe this is one of the final slides. Laura's prompted me on the time. These are some of the key questions, I think, facing the quantum computing industry. Some of you might have had to answer these questions to your board or whoever. It's clear that which qubit is best. There are lots of different vendors promoting superconducting or ion or in our case photonic. I don't know, a little bit by the by, every platform's different, but which qubit is best is a pretty important question to answer. There is a huge dawn of what's known as quantum inspired. So by the way, when you're looking at reinventing computing, you tend to come up with some pretty cool methods to change existing computing in what's known as quantum inspired. So can you approach problems in a new way because you've been looking at a quantum computer, but that actually still works on a normal computer? That's a full and an active area of research. I think there is also a question about whether you're interested in hardware, software, or full stack. Which one's the most important? Whether software will come first and hardware will follow, where hardware will lead and software will follow. There's a huge, well, let me say, the hardware vendors don't want to be commoditized as they were with the classical computers. So, we're going to fight our own game to sort of, make sure that the hardware is important. There's a question about on-premises versus cloud. There's questions about hybrid versus fully quantum. And the most critical question about timing. When can you expect to receive one of these things and actually start producing some value for your organization? So let me just end, because I have run out of time, just on a little bit on ORCA. And this is more a point to where quantum is. I mean, many of you might be sitting in the audience, maybe you've reviewed quantum 3 years ago and you're still stuck with that impression. Things are moving so quickly that in ORCA's case, we've actually deployed 2 of our systems now. This was a system which is now sitting in the Middle East with a customer. From my own talk and some of the previous panel talks, hopefully it's no surprise to see that this stuff is moving forward really quickly. And the leading companies are buying quantum computers, they're investing in the software development and upskilling teams. So, whether or not you buy into quantum computing or not, I would leave you with the point that if you're not looking at it and you're wanting to be at the forefront of high performance computing or compute, you probably should keep looking closely and regularly, because everything's moving forward quite quickly. And I think I'm probably out of time, so I'll just say thank you very much.